Hi, this is Andy Neal, and this is a Final Cut Pro quick tip. I'd like to talk for a bit about track mats and how Final Cut uses them. Now, first of all, a mat is a grayscale image or movie that Final Cut will use to help determine transparency in another clip. The black areas of the mat will become transparent in the clip, and the white areas will become opaque. And it's a way to composite one clip over another when those clips do not normally come with an alpha channel. One of the easiest ways to show how this works is to use a very common technique of blurring somebody's face. Okay, so I'm starting with a shot that I have of some nutballs celebrating after the Lakers won the world championship. And I'm going to blur this guy out here. So I'm going to start right about here, mark an endpoint, move forward till he goes off screen, mark an out point, and then add that into my timeline. But I don't want my audio, so I'm going to uncheck my audio targets and then add it into the timeline. Okay, so now I have my clip. Now go up to the viewer, click on this button, and choose Shape Oval from the menu. And we need to superimpose this on top of the original clip. So make sure your sequence is selected and hit X on the keyboard to mark clip. And then you can just drag this, hit superimpose, or F12 on your keyboard is also the shortcut for that. Okay, so now I have an oval over the entire length of that clip. Now right now I can't see the clip below it, so I need to make this black area transparent first. Right click the oval, go to composite mode, and choose screen. Now composite mode is a blend mode. It's a way to blend one clip onto another by using luminance or hue or saturation type levels. There's all kinds of different blend modes that exist. And the screen blend mode, what that does is it takes all the dark areas of an image, in other words the black parts of this oval, and it makes it transparent. So what that leaves us with is a white circle, kind of a soft white circle, over on top of our Laker fan video. Okay, double click the oval to load it into the viewer and go to the controls tab. First of all, let's change the aspect so that the oval is kind of more vertical, because that's more like the shape of a human head. And I'm going to increase the softness quite a bit, like that, and then lower the size. Maybe I increase the softness a little too much there. And then lower the size a little bit. Doesn't have to be exact. And then go back to the very first frame of your timeline. Drag the corner to scale this down further so that it is roughly the size of this guy's face. Kind of place it right over there. Okay, now click on the motion tab and set a keyframe for scale. Scroll forward until he's just about out of frame and go ahead and place it here and scale it up until it covers him. Since the guy is coming towards the camera, we need to keyframe the scale of this oval so that it follows him properly. Okay? Now replace the clip back to the beginning where he started, and then mark keyframes for rotation, center, and then open up the distort parameter and also place a keyframe for aspect ratio. Now we're just going to scrub a little bit in the timeline, move the position to sort of follow him along. Just scrub every once in a while. There's no real trick to this. I try not to make too many keyframes. I do broad strokes, catch him on his bounces as he goes up and then changes direction. And then the computer's pretty good at following the rest of the way. And you notice because I had already animated the scale, I'm able to stay pretty close to covering his face the whole way. And scrubbing through a little more. There we go. And then he's off screen. Now at this point he's off screen, so I can actually trim this clip to that point. So I only need it for the length that he's on screen for. And scrub back through your timeline and look for any discrepancies. Like right there, there's a discrepancy. And just keep adjusting the oval until you get it right. If you feel like you need to make any changes in the scale, certainly do that. He bounces quite a bit, so he's moving a lot. but you can do this relatively quickly without keyframing every single frame. Okay, it looks pretty good. Now that you have this part done, that was the hard part. Let's adjust the aspect ratio just for a moment, because he's at the beginning of this. If I turn off this track, he's not facing the camera. Select the aspect ratio slider and it kind of thins out the edges of the oval. Then scroll forward a little bit till he kind of turns his face, and then go back to 0. And he kind of faces the camera after that. There you go. Okay, now that we have this shiny white dot on top of him, we need to make it into a blur. The way you do that is by copying the layer on the bottom, the original layer. And there's an easy way to do that. You don't have to match frame and then lay it on top. You can simply select it, then hold down the Option key, click and drag above. Release the Option key before you release the mouse, and then hold down the Shift key as well to ensure that it snaps to the same exact space. And now we have a copy of the original clip on top of the oval layer. So what we need to do now is we need to apply this matte that we created down here on V2. We need to apply it to this top clip. Before we do that, let's blur the top clip. Go to your Effects tab, under Video Filters, find Blur, and I like to use Gaussian Blur, so just drop it on there. Double click your V3 layer and go to the Filters tab and just crank up the radius. Nice big 30 maybe, just so you can't see any definition. And then in the timeline, right click that V3 layer, go to Composite Mode, Travel Matte Luma. And what that does is the Travel Matte Luma uses the information in this layer below, which is that black and white clip that we created. It uses that information to determine what pixels of this top layer are visible and what pixels are not. And the only pixels that will be visible from this top layer are the ones that are white, like that circle that we created. So what we end up with is a nice blurred face, just like that. The closer to camera that a face is, the more blur is required to keep him or her from being distinguishable. So go to your radius and just crank the blur up until you can't really tell what you're looking at. And then you can then also trim this top layer the same length as the original oval, because once he goes off screen, there's no need for that blur. Do a quick render, and there it is. Nice blurred face. I'm Andy Neal, and this has been a Final Cut Pro Quick Tip.